Hello, Arnold Freeman here. Gave me this video. He said, take a look at this. It's a few years old. And I think it's worth looking at. This is Ab and Preach, and they view this discussion on incel culture. And it is worth looking at. And I'll tell you, these guys make a lot of mistakes. For one thing, eventually you're going to see, I don't know who's who. I'm assuming this is Ab and this is Preach, or vice versa, but I'll call him Preach. Preach here admits in hypergamy that it's a thing. So Preach, when you say the hypergamy is a thing and women select for only a small minority of men, you have to admit that most men are incels. So there's not a lot separating you and me from this young man, Derek, who's an incel. So these guys won't want to admit that. So we will take a look at this and critique their critique. Okay.
Involuntary celibate is someone who tries but cannot, according to themselves, be successful in mating with other people. Solely blaming on the other.
If you could summarize your opinion towards women.
Like what I
Now, this is a loaded question that they should be pointing out. When she's asking women, what she's really saying, do you worship women? Not do you think that they're equals? A man who sees a woman as at an equal level is considered a misogynist. So she's really saying, do you know your place as a man?
Think of them?
Yes.
I do think they are very important. But, hey, I'm Brendio. I also go by Derek. I'm an incel, and I'm here to answer people's questions about the topic.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
So you're an incel.
Yes.
Why would you ever sign up to do this?
I suppose I would want to give more of a positive light on this community, which is a very negative light upon it.
Okay. And do you think that's a good thing?
Yes.
Why
Why are you mad, bro? Calm down. These are weird questions to ask. You think it's a good thing that you're trying to make your people look good? Okay.
Now, the guys do try to be fair. And I think overall they're fair people. But in the end, they're going to fail when it comes to gender dynamics. Because like I say, Preach here, you'll see later on, he'll admit hypergamy is a thing. And then Abba here will then blame the guys for not getting with the girls. He'll give them pickup advice and say there's something wrong with you. Sorry, Abba and Preach, you guys can't have it both ways. I'm just letting you know that.
A lot of the boys in this community aren't bad people.
But you acknowledge that a good handful of them are, right?
Now, will these guys point out that they don't ask how they're bad? And even Derek doesn't realize. I'd be asking, what do you mean bad? Bad how? Because simply ranting about women on an internet space is hardly bad. They don't affect the world or society in any negative way. I would say I've never seen an incel bomber. I don't know how they could be bad other than these guys don't know their place and don't know that they're not allowed to rant on, even privately, about women.
Not a good handful, I'd say a small handful.
That's the worst logic you could use. If you're going to use that logic to describe incels because some of them do something terrible, we could apply that to almost any group, whether it be Muslims, whether it be white people, whether it be, like.
Preach. How are incels bad people? You see, even Abbott and Preach here don't get it. They don't even think to ask such a simple question. That's the basics. How are incels bad people? Even the bad ones, what do they do?
Like, careful what kind of logical patterns you're trying to go down, because once it's used against you, you can't be like, oh, that's bigoted. No, you set the standards.
If a woman was elected as president of the United States, how would you react?
I don't know. It probably would depend on the woman. I probably wouldn't be supportive of it, honestly. But
Why do you say that, if you don't mind me asking?
I do think that men should be the leaders and women should be the caregivers and the love.
What this young fella is here, he's probably not a traditionalist by nature, but young men turn to traditionalism hoping it'll give him the chance to get the girl. That's all he's saying. That's all his motivation is.
Supporting the teachers in some cases.
Since women of color or just women in general have been oppressed by certain systems and other oppressed communities, especially LGBTQ+, all those don't really fit with the spectrum that incels or you have been talking about. So why do you think your method of thought would help fix what we have today?
He doesn't want to fix it. That's the thing, like the way you ask your question, you brought all this thing up. He doesn't want to fix that. That's what he believes in. He don't care about you. He don't care about what you've been suffering about.
Okay, a couple things. The first thing, he's giving him to a feminist frame. He doesn't care what you've been suffering about. This woman isn't suffering. Abba, if I've got you right, sorry if I mixed you two guys up, there is no oppression of women. There never has been. So you're giving into a feminist framework. That's mistake number one, okay? And the second thing is he does want something fixed. He wants a chance to get the girl, and he actually wants respect that he isn't getting. Low status men, which is, by the way, you and me as well, are respected by society. And he would be like a woman to love him and respect him, and society to respect him better. So he does want something fixed. I mean, you wouldn't be an incel community if there wasn't something wrong with society, would there?
It should be like that. And that's the way it is. So you bringing that to make me feel some type of way is not gonna, it's gonna fail. What makes you think he wants to change that? How is the way you think gonna change that? I don't want to change anything. He don't.
I probably wouldn't view the things that you might view as oppression as oppression.
See? It doesn't matter how you think.
I have a feeling. I would view it more as how we treat children that we love.
Because she's approaching the conversation as if they're both equals. He's like, no, you're a child.
You're a child.
And, we're going to take care of you like you're a child.
We control them, but we can...
No, you guys, of course, have it all wrong. She doesn't see him as an equal. She sees him as beneath her. He's a grubby incel, and she's part of the aristocracy. She has more rights than he does. She has more rights than you two have, or I have. Because she is woman and we are men. And he doesn't want to take care of her as a child. He wants to take care of her as a queen. Like if she ever dated this guy, he'd be the worker and she'd be the one who could be a housewife and just leech off him. That is not taking care of a child. That is taking care of a noble. You are the peasant who works and she's the noble who doesn't. So you guys have that wrong.
Control them lovingly, not as we're forcing them to do things against their will. I would view it more as a loving domestic thing in the past.
Bruv, you can't say we're not treating you like us or like this or like that, and then talk about them as if they are pets, as if they are people who are not capable of making decisions for themselves. You are pushing them into servitude. If you're taking away their ability to choose, you're forcing them. It's like saying, bro, you got multiple avenues to choose, but you can't use A or B, you just got C. You're not letting me choose, you're forcing me down a path.
It's a fake choice.
Exactly. On this channel, we preach a lot about it.
By the way, really? Ab and Preach, can you guys do whatever you like in society? Can you run red lights or take a dump in the public street? No. So basically, he's saying there's going to be actual boundaries. He doesn't know how to word it when he says control. I would never say that. Not that I would ever be in his position, but I'd be saying, yeah, society does need people to have boundaries and limitations on our behaviors. That's society 101. And again, he's not treating her as a child. And here's another thing. Making decisions for this woman is putting himself in the servitude road. You guys are wrong. She's not the servant, he is. Preach and Abba, if you have a wife and she's sitting at home and you guys are at work, you're the servants, not her.
Accountability. So sometimes we have critiques of women where we're like, yo, y'all can do better in this area because you guys have the power to. You have the ability to make those decisions for yourself and to be better so that we're all better. Same thing for the men. When we give certain advices in regards to certain problems and situations. And now his mantra is like, no, men should make all the choices because ladies, you don't have the moral responsibility or the aptitude to do it.
Dude, there's a couple of things for one thing. But I'll get to the moral aptitude. You know something? I wouldn't have agreed with him a few years back, but let me show you some videos that I have to dealt with. This, by the way, App and Preach is what I came across dealing with society. Here's a video, for example, men's only space. There's a men's only space where the women were trying to break into it when the women had their only spaces. Now we're talking about, gentlemen, we're talking about the morality of women to make decisions, right? So in this particular case, it shows that on a societal level, women do not treat men as equals, do they? They can have their own spaces, but the men are not allowed to have their own spaces, right? Right. So there's that one. Here's another one, Ab and Preach, the evil misandry of female teachers. I was talking with this other gentleman in a hangout, and it was about a post from a male teacher who was in a predominantly female space, and the women abused him and made him a second-class citizen. They were sexist towards him, Abba and Preach. So in the workplace, men are abused by women, and women's choices, when they're given the choice, is to marginalize men. So do you see the experiences men are having when women are in charge? And I'm not going to end it here. Let me show you another one. Let me show you another one. I have a couple of videos talking about an all-male curfew that this female PM wanted to push on the men of England, all men, not criminal men, all men. She wanted to treat all men, even innocent, hardworking men, as criminals. If you want to go and check these videos out. So Ab and Preach, I'm sorry, guys, but this young fella, he's on the right path for the wrong reason. He's only trying to get some kind of limitations on women's behavior so he can get the girl. Now I'm on the right path for the right reason. I want limitations on these women's behavior because I am an equalist and I don't want to be a second-class citizen. And neither do you two, do you? Right? Right. So women on a macro scale have proven by their actions to see us men not as equals, but as a other class of people that are beneath them who they like to abuse and marginalize. I have the receipts. What do you guys have?
I ain't with that.
So I would say that if we were to do it in a civilized way, maybe in a more, even a Christian way, even though I'm not really advocating for a certain religion or ideology.
Oh, by the way, this is secondary, but I remember one of the guys telling me, I think it was Promel Vandella, he has a video where a guy joined the church to get a girl, and if the girl left the church, he would dump the church too. Guys don't even want to necessarily go into religion. They just see it as they're taking any avenue they can to get the girl. That's it. Just a sidebar.
I would assume that women would probably be happier. And I wouldn't just assume that blindly. I would assume that based on the data that I've seen.
This man is very good
at not saying
Yes, you talk a lot, but you don't say much, and you talk a lot in circles. And in order to appear diplomatic, you're masking his views in more simple languages, but most of us can still detect it. Just say.
What are you talking about? His views aren't sexist. All he's doing is saying he wants to gear it so that he has a better chance to get with a girl. And he's putting himself in a servitude road. I will work for you and you just be there for me. If anything, he's sexist to men. Do you guys want to be servants? I don't.
Say what you want to say.
Yeah.
Because you're sugarcoating it and no one's buying it. And I think that in an attempt to make incels look better, you've actually managed to make them look worse.
And like I said, again, he is saying something. He's saying he wants a girlfriend. That's it.
What data have you seen that has brought you to this conclusion? Because I'm now curious where I can get this data from.
I couldn't reference it offhand, but I believe there was a study that I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head.
Because you're talking.
Who knows? He may not. I've read studies that I don't remember the name of. And if you ask me on the spot, I probably wouldn't be able to name them. Would you?
Yeah, I understand that.
You know, I just think it's interesting that Jubilee left that part in, but when the other discussion happened about studies and stats, they actually told the people there present, do not reference your stats, do not reference your numbers, because for the sake of the discussion, we have to talk about ideas.
Exactly. So in this way, Ab and Preach are being fair. And they're not pointing out the obvious, though, that this young guy has been brought as a lamb to the slaughter. This is not a neutral ground, is it, Ab and Preach? Because the reason why they didn't let these guys talk about their stats, like men's rights, is because they don't want these men to make any points. You understand? So, I mean, it's always going to be unfair.
Just an interesting note, because I remember I talked to Kurtzat privately, and he said, yeah, they actually stopped me from speaking about the studies I'm referencing because they didn't like us talking based off facts.
One-sided.
So just an interesting editing note, but let's keep going.
What do you think it is about liberal areas that create behavior in women that you think is a problem?
Promiscuity leads to increased standards in more primitive aspects such as looks, and that typically makes it harder for some people to find a relationship, including sometimes good-looking people. Like there's guys who are much better looking than I am who are having a really hard time finding someone in a place like LA or in London or in Auckland, New Zealand, but they probably would have a perfectly fine time finding a woman somewhere else.
So
There you go. He's just admitted lookism is crap, by the way, gentlemen. Will you point that out? Good-looking men are having a hard time. Good-looking men are being deselected. And basically they go to a poor country where their status means something. Now, is Ab and Preach going to actually admit that women go for status? I don't think so. You're going to see later in this that they won't. And also, this has nothing to do with liberalism. You know, this young fella is desperate. He really thinks that there's a conservative or traditional society where he might have a better chance. There isn't.
So you think that promiscuity is the problem, and if people were more monogamous and more withholding, that would sort of fix society?
Yeah, I suppose people are more traditionalists.
So by people not being monogamous, not being promiscuous, you think it's going to give you more chances of scoring? The mathematics of that is broken.
How so? If more people are monogamous, then that does mean that he'd have more chance of scoring.
How?
Because let's say if there's 50 women and 50 men, and each one of them can only couple with one person, then more people are going to couple.
There's some people that are going to couple with nobody.
If people are more monogamous,
If they're more promiscuous and they're going around, they're going to be like, hey man, whatever.
No, because imagine, let's say it's like the job market. You want to apply to a high-level job, they're not hiring you. You're going to accept a lower-paying job. Same idea with date. People settle all the time. Yeah. So
You're wrong. The reason, Preach, you're wrong. The reason why there are cat ladies is because women prefer cats over men. There are all kinds of single women out there that when they feel like picking up a man, they do, but they usually don't. You guys don't admit the imbalance between the genders. You guys want to get with the girls. The girls really don't give a shit about getting together with guys. So you're just wrong about that, Preach.
It is certainly true that in more monogamous societies, where monogamy is far more encouraged through culture, that more people couple with each other.
But if you're more promiscuous and you have 50 people and 50 people, you're going to go around.
No. it's literally 10 guys. That's literally the definition of a hypergamy, which is how women operate. They go at their level or above. So the guys who are below their level are not getting some.
But the guys are
10 guys are. 40 guys aren't. And it's like that even on college campuses. College campuses, if you look, there's actually a small minority of men who plow all the women.
Where
There you go. Hey, thank you. I want to bring that back. Thank you, Preach. So you admit hypergamy. You admit, now I don't know, I wouldn't back the numbers exactly, but if you were right and it was 10 guys out of 50 that get all the girls, that means 40 guys, 80% of men are deselected, 80% of men are incels. And by the way, that would include you two. You guys aren't the top dogs, are you? Maybe someone knows you on YouTube and seen your podcast and you have some status there, but you guys are nobodies to the vast majority of women out there. So when you guys call this guy incel, why? I mean, he labels himself as one, but the only difference between you and him is that he's given up and he's recognized his position, and you guys still have hope and believe that it's not true. But here you are, Preach, admitting that the vast majority of us, including you two, don't get the girl. You believe in hypergamy.
40 guys aren't. And it's like that even on college campuses. College campuses, if you look, there's actually a small minority of men who plow all the women.
where these actually stated that they were.
Hold it. Before we go any further, will these two point out the dishonesty of showing Elliot Rodger? Elliot Rodger never claimed to be an incel, ever. He was never part of the incel community. They're taking this shooter, this mass shooter, and trying to say he's an incel and muddy these guys' name with it. Now, are these going to call him out?
For incels, or what do you think about their actions?
I condemn their actions. I do think that the reason why they committed those actions was probably because of out of desperation or out of, you know, mental problems that probably could have been prevented had the right support was in their community, in their household. If people, you know, saw what they were posting and saw what they were experiencing in life and did something to help them.
I agree. Even in the point of incels, I can give you that. Whenever they state that they're lonely or stuff like that, it might be very.
No, they didn't. Sorry to cut it off, but they didn't mention that. These guys could see what they were showing, that Elliot Rodger. And they didn't call that out.
Maladroit, the best way that they could express themselves.
Sure.
And they're going to be ostracized for that. Just the fact that men are people that do not talk about the mental issues because of the pressure of the society and other things and whatnot.
Really? So why is society pressuring men not to talk about their problems? Who? You guys know that if a man shows vulnerability, he doesn't get selected. So this young fella here, this Derek fella, if he showed himself as vulnerable, which he is here, he's not going to get selected by the girl. Right? So this is why men don't show vulnerability, and you guys are the same way. If you guys know, if you want success with the opposite sex, that you are going to have to fulfill certain gender roles. You're going to have to be that strong, silent, stoic man. Whoever you are in real life, you can't be that if you want a relationship with the opposite sex. That's just the fact of it.
One of the common criticisms about the incel community is that you feel entitled to intimacy. Do you believe that you deserve?
I think everybody at some level deserves someone that loves them and, you know, respects them, as long as you are also.
Consistently, you've disrespected women. You say everybody deserves someone that's going to love them and respect them, but you're not respecting women because you want to treat them like children.
No, I already broke that off. He wants to treat this woman like a queen. And this guy will do everything. He'll work like a dog to have her around. So you're wrong. This man has not disrespected women whatsoever. And why aren't you entitled to intimacy? Do you, Abba, if you are Abba, not Preach, don't you feel that you deserve intimacy? and love and respect as a person. And frankly, if women did, there wouldn't be an incel community, would there? That's why later on, you've got to have to start trying to trash this guy and say, man, something's wrong with you, because neither of you want to come to terms with the fact that on the vast majority of women don't respect men. And they're not interested in being intimate with men.
How is that gonna make you laid, bruh?
Well, he would argue that even if he did respect women, he still wouldn't get laid.
I understand that, but it takes more than just respect.
Oh, by the way, guys, there are all kinds of men in sexless marriages that tolerate it. They don't like it, but they tolerate it. So this guy, even going on about this, getting this guy laid, he's not necessarily trying to get laid. He just wants a woman in his life, just like you do. I bet if you guys got together with a woman and she stayed with you and she just turned it off, you guys probably wouldn't leave either. You would grumble about it, maybe cry in your beer at the bar, but you wouldn't leave her. So you don't even understand that men's motivation is really just female validation and intimacy, and guys prefer that over sex, obviously. Because like I say, if I was wrong, then there wouldn't be sexless marriages. Guys would just end up leaving. They would divorce.
It's more than R-E-S-P-C-T, you understand? This life is not a song. I mean, I've been rejected and rejected and rejected, and at some point, you have to understand.
You've been rejected and rejected and rejected. Thank you. So how are you different from this young man? Like I said, the difference is on the surface. Thank you, Abba, for admitting it, because men have been rejected and rejected. The standard guy has. Even guys who you say plow all the girls, they get a lot, just many as rejections as they have successes. The average guy is an incel. The only difference is you still are on the working treadmill. That's it. You're still a believer. But I bet you're rejected as much as this young man.
And if you do the same thing and you expect a different result, that's just the definition of insanity. You understand what I'm saying? There's so
Aha, I told you. These two, Preach here talked about hypergamy, which means the women select for a minority of men, and those minority of men have no choice on that. If they're not good enough for the girls, they're not good enough for the girls. So now Abba here is putting it on the guys, like the guys have choice, like the guys have power in the situation. So if some woman doesn't want to date you, Abba, what are you going to do about it? So he's putting the blame on these guys, you know, personality. It's more of this, why don't you just take a shower, buddy, or have confidence? It's this horseshit. And this is what I'm talking about. Abba and Preach are the standard guys. They do not want to deal with how women view men. Women love men. Ask them. I bet they'll say, yeah, women love men. So when, you know, they deselect 80% of men, there's got to be something wrong with that 80% of men, right? It can't just be women's selection process.
one here in Canada, in Montreal, as a matter of fact, that is giving classes to new immigrants, just to tell them how things work with women here, because women here don't have the same way of thinking than in their countries. You know, people might be awkward for some way because they act in a certain way. You know, if
you are wrong, Abba. Women are the exact same here as they are over there. What it is these women over here don't need a provider. They have easy office jobs. Where the men over there in poorer countries, the women still want providers. That's it. The women are exactly the same. How do I know? Because guys have admitted that they've gone on to these poor countries, got a bride, brought her back to this country. When the bride got used to a first world living, she divorced him.
a Haitian from Haiti and You just came to Montreal and you came with your Haitian swagger. It might not work here. You're gonna be trying to speak French. Bonjour, mademoiselle. Comment allez-vous? Vous savez que vous. That's corny here. You understand what I'm saying?
I would counter by
It's not corny though. Just because it doesn't work doesn't mean it's corny. If it's so corny, how come it worked where he was? Are the women from Haiti? Do their brains not work right and they don't recognize he's being corny? Of course not. They're looking for providers there and they're not looking for providers here. Right? Exactly. So a guy can say a line that you would deem corny and it worked there because the woman is saying, yeah, this guy's interested in me and I'm interested in him. Over here, the women aren't interested in men. Why are you giving pickup advice, by the way, when Preach, again, admitted that hypergamy is a thing?
by saying his argument would probably be that's a matter of changing your culture. What he can't change are his looks, and his looks are always getting excluded from the dating pool.
It's not just about looks. Jay-Z is with Beyonce, but let's remember that.
But he's also going to counter then by saying, yeah, it's about social status. He'll say it's about making mad money.
I know some Jay-Z's that are not Jay-Z. You understand what I'm saying?
Sorry, you're full of shit. You know Jay-Z's that aren't Jay-Z's? In other words, an ugly guy with a good-looking woman. Dude, please. Dude, please. Abba, I've got a whole playlist called Girls Go for Status that just disproves that bullshit 100%. So please, sir, get a grip.
And they're getting it. But
they have minimum wage Jay-Z's?
Yeah.
Oh, really? They get some?
Yes,
Okay.
and they get some. It ain't got nothing to do with necessarily money or fame or all of that.
Then you're full of shit. You don't know how women think or what they go for, even when it's obvious. The rock star who's an ugly druggie will bang all the girls he wants. Then he becomes a has-been and the girls disappear. What happened? Come on.
It ain't got nothing to do with necessarily money or fame or all of that. You have certain assets. Listen, on top of the thing, this Derek dude, right by now, people are like, ugh, this guy's disgusting. But he's not a bad-looking dude. He could get some. With this attitude, it's like one attitude leads to another thing, which is another thing. He's stuck in a loop that's not going to get him some.
Okay, yes, this is what I'm talking. This is the horse shit guys have to deal with. He's blaming the guys after they talked about hypergamy. And also it shows you Lookism wrong. You admit it. He's not a bad looking guy. He's not getting any because his experiences. These guys got the cart before the horse. It's more of this confidence horseshit. ABBA. Success breeds confidence, not the other way around. This guy has already been through rejection after. You admit it. You've been rejected and rejected and rejected. So your experiences say that women aren't that interested in you, are they? So he's just admitting it, and you aren't. That's the only difference between him and you. You can't admit your situation. He does. He recognizes it. That's why he's desperate and hoping to change things. You're willing to burn your life away, wasting it on the treadmill of rejection. That's on you, dude. And by the way, since you've been rejected, obviously it doesn't matter what you say or do. The girls aren't interested in you. So you're disproving everything you've just said. You guys contradict yourselves in your own video. Oh yeah, I just want to get this little chip into.
Or you know, the lonely person in your class or the lonely person in your workplace, maybe he's an incel and he's not letting you know, and he's just kind of afraid he wants someone positive. Just be nice, say hi, try and make friends with him. You don't have to date him. You don't have to.
In the True Believe video, did you say you couldn't be friends with a woman?
That woman could be your best friend. That, you know, like, so, and again.
So.
Oh, nigga, you got receipts.
I got news for you too, guys. Only peers can be friends. And so to be a friend with a woman, she has to be your peer. She has to see you as a peer. And we live in a culture, like I just showed you, that in the UK, the women were trying to put their men in a 6 p.m. curfew. That the women ousted men and marginalized in the workplace, like that male teacher. And that women who have their own spaces don't want men to have their own spaces. Women do not see men as peers. They see us as beneath them. I have receipts, Abba. I have receipts. How about you? Right. So what I'm telling you is that men and women can't be friends because they can't be peers. These women will never see men as peers. Good. I'm glad we got this over with.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
Okay.
Okay.
To maybe
Here is some really some really coping from these two.
Hope, yeah. I'm a very hopeful person, I suppose.
Thank God.
I don't think he's going to be an incel much longer. I think he's going to figure it out. He's not nearly as dumb or as bad as people have made him out to be.
Really? So women are going to overcome their hypergamy? Preach. Do you or do you not believe in hypergamy? So women are going to change their stripes. The leopard's going to change their spot. They're going to value low status men now. Why? So again, these guys don't want to admit that the way women view men again. Why are you talking about him figuring it out? He hasn't done anything wrong. He's a low status man, and women aren't interested into him for that reason. They're not into him for that reason. So for you to say this means you are burying your head in your sand. You're pointing out a truth about women and how they view men, and then you're reneging on it. Sorry, this is why men are losers. They can't come to terms with reality.
I do think he has some logical inconsistencies and he's in some bad thinking patterns. But at the end of the day, if you were constantly encountering failure in life, you cannot go at it with the mindset that the world is the problem.
Really? Is that so? I haven't seen any logical inconsistencies from this guy. I've seen them only from YouTube. And Abba, for example, said he got rejected and rejected and rejected. So isn't there something wrong with the world? I mean, Abba, what did you do that was so wrong? Do you not get rejected anymore? I doubt it. I would love to see you go out in the street and talk to a woman, just pick her up. I'd love to film that. Which means that there is something wrong with the world in the way that women don't particularly like men. They don't necessarily want it. If you look at how women behave, they like to group with other women and talk with them and be with them. And men are always trying to get in there. So sorry, pal, but preach, you have no business putting it on this young man. This man's a growing demographic because the modern world has given women choices, and their choices, preach, have been shown. They choose not to deal with men. They don't particularly like us. They're not really that interested in us. And you have to come to terms. Now, I'll just quickly take a look at the video, see if there's anything worth pointing out again. I doubt it. Okay, yeah, is one more important thing.
Self-inflicted.
Sure, 100%. But I do think that there has been a lot of mischaracterizations. I think people have not taken the time to see it as a mental health problem. You know, loneliness is an epidemic in North America.
Loneliness is an epidemic in North America, and they show a picture of a man. That's right. It is a male problem. So preach, why are you trying to bury a male issue under gender neutral terms? I have a video talking about that, like men's issues get buried under gender neutral terms. How many women are incels? They aren't. So this loneliness problem is a male problem. because the women like to hang with other women so they can find each other. Men don't like to hang with other men. They like to hang with women too, and women don't particularly like men. So that's where this problem comes from. It's a male issue.
With loneliness in terrible ways. And you know what the incel community is the equivalent of? Like the female equivalent would be K. Michelle.
No, there is no equivalent. No, this woman is not an incel. She can get a guy anytime she likes. You guys, you have gone beyond just burying your head in the sand. You guys don't know what you're talking about. You guys have no idea what you're talking about. There is no female equivalent.
All men are no. You need to find out about what it is about your patterns.
No, dude, no. Her saying all men are shit just means women don't respect men. These young guys aren't incels because they say all men, women are shit. They might say that after they've got rejected. That beautiful woman can get a guy anytime. I'm going to show you one last thing before I end this video. This is Andrea Dworkin. She is a very ugly, very overweight, very hateful woman. She said nasty things about men throughout her whole life. She got herself a long-term boyfriend. Do you hear that? Abba and Preach. She got herself a long-term partner. And she, again, was a hardcore feminist, radical feminist. Not that I shouldn't be using the term radical. She was a very hateful person. She did everything she could to not attract a man. And yet she's got a man. So you are absolutely 100% wrong that there is a female incel. They don't exist. You guys are delusional, and you're part of the problem. The average man is a part of the problem, and these two are exhibit A and B. Thank you. That's all we have to say about this.